and our friends. How often do we do things with our family and friends? And when I say, we get together with our families and friends sometimes, but do we ever get together with our families and friends and focus on God? Think about it. We get together all the time. Well, some of us get together all the time with our families and friends. We have a day set for families and friends. But when we're together, do we focus on God? You can take 15 minutes out of the 3 or 4 hours that y'all spending time together and focus on God. Those are things we have to put in our memory bank and start putting it into practice, because we forget. Because when we get together, a lot of times, we eating, we drinking. Let's not pretend that we ain't drinking, because we are, some of us. Yeah. He said no. We drinking, we having fun. But are we putting our focus on God? What is important in our lives? And this is what Alex had to realize. He had to realize that his focus was on something else, and it was not of God. Okay, verse 1 says, on August 29th of the second year of King Darius' reign, the Lord gave a message through the prophet Haggai to Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Jeshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. It says, the Jews who had returned to Babylon in 538 BC to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem was not able to finish their work because they was hindered by their enemies. After oppositions put a halt to the progress, no further work had been done on the temple for over 10 years. In August 520 BC, Haggai delivered a message to encourage the people to rebuild the temple. Haggai was probably born in captivity in Babylon and returned to Jerusalem, with Zerubbabel in 538 BC. Haggai and Zechariah, 2 prophets, was encouraged the temple rebuilding that was mentioned in Israel in chapter 5, verses 1. God asked his people how they could, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm skipping myself. It says, I'm getting ahead of myself, let's put it that way. It says, this is what the Lord of heaven's army said. The people are saying, the time has not yet come to rebuild the house of the Lord. Then the Lord sent the message through the prophet Haggai. Why are you living in luxury houses while my house lies in ruin? It says God asked his people how they could live in luxury when his house was lying in ruins. The temple was the focus point of Judah's relationship with God, but it was still demolished. Instead of rebuilding the temple, the people put their energy into beautifying their own homes. However, the harder the people worked for themselves, the less they had, because they ignored the spiritual lives. They ignored their spiritual lives. The same happens to us today. If we put God first, he will provide our deepest needs. If we put him in any other place, all our efforts will be futile. Caring only for your physical need while ignoring your relationship with God will lead you to ruin. And when I was studying this, and I thought about it, and I have said over the years, if we said, this is God's house, let's have a cleaning party at the church. Let's have a painting party. Now, grant you, I can't paint, but I would do my best if I wasn't sneezing to death. But anywho, you say, let's have a painting party. Let's go to the church and have a cleaning party. And I had said this a couple of years ago. And as of today, we still looking like we was looking, if not a little worn. And this is what God was saying to them. We live in these luxury houses. We have roofs over our heads. If a little dirt get on our floor, we sweeping it up. But we come to God's house and we don't care. We don't care. I'm just putting it out there. If I step on your toes, ouch. If you come to God's house, you don't care. You leave your trash. You leave anything that you want. We done got so laid back till we eat almost a full meal in the church house, in the sanctuary. Why? Because we don't consider, for the most part, that this is God's house, and it's special. We people have to do better. Because God is not going to give you what you need. And think about what verse 4 said. Was it verse 4? Well, no. Yes. Verse 4 says, why are you living in luxury houses while my house lies in ruin? I think I'm getting ahead of myself because it goes on, well, I'll get to it. It goes on about how you keep trying to get things, but you can't never succeed because it's like a water hose, and it keeps running out because you're not putting God first. You think about it. And yes, I'm going there this morning, so just get ready. The trustee board sent out a letter to every member of the church that they had an address to and said, give a little more because the church needs your help. I take care of the bills. I take care of the money. But if I told you, or if they told you, let's go on a cruise. Let's go to Jamaica. Let's go to the Caribbean. How fast would you save your money to go? But when it comes to God's house, we don't have extra. I'm giving enough, and I'm not giving any more. God don't need your money or my money. Yes, no, he don't. But it's your job as a child of God. This is God's house, and to take care of his house is where your priorities lies. And why your priorities lies with yourself as a child of God, he sees you. You're not going to keep what you make. It's going to get away from you one way or the other until you put him first. And yes, I went there. Okay? Verse 7 says, this is what the Lord of Heaven army says. Look at what's happening to you. Now go up the hill, bring down timber, and rebuild my house. Then I will take pleasure in it and be honored, said the Lord. Your hopes for rich harvest, but they was poor. And when you brought your harvest home, I blew it away. Why? Because my house lies in ruins, said the Lord of heaven, armies, while all of you are busy building your own fine homes. It says Judah's problem was confused priority. This is what our problem is today. Like Judah, our priorities involving occupations, families, and God's work are often confused. Jobs, homes, vacation, and leisure activities, many ranked higher on our list of importance than God. What is most important to you? Where is God in all your list of priorities? Where is is he on your list? Is he at the bottom? You know, we put our jobs first. We put our family first a lot of times. And think about it. When we put these things first, what happens? I have told a couple of people over the years. I just told my boss this about 3 months ago. I said, you putting all your effort into this job. I understand we have a job to do. You work on the weekends. You do all of these things. I just got an email from her. I was looking at my work email yesterday. I said, this woman is still working. And I told her point blank, be careful. These jobs don't care about you. They care about what they can get out of you. But once they don't need you, they're going to say bye. Where is our priorities? If we put God first, if we put him on the top of our list, we don't have to worry about anything else. Because it's not going to be water running down the street that we can't control. Because he gives us what we need anyway. But he going to give us some things that we want. And we can see the results of it. Because sometimes we see stuff and we can't have, and we wonder, why I can't get this? Why I can't get that? Lord, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. No, you're not. You're not putting God first. And that's what we need to do. It says, it's because of you that the heavens withheld the dew and the earth produced no crops. Then Zerubbabel, of the son of Shealtiel, excuse me, and Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and the whole remnants of God's people began to obey the message from the Lord their God. When they heard the word of the prophet Haggai, whom the Lord their God sent, the people feared the Lord. Then Haggai, the Lord's messenger, gave the people this message from the Lord. I am with you, said the Lord. So the Lord sprinkled the enthusiasm of Jezebel, son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the enthusiasm of Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and the enthusiasm of the whole remnant of God's people. They began to work on the house of their God, the Lord of heaven's army. On September 21st of the second year of King Darius' reign, it said the people began to rebuild the temple just 23 days after Haggai's first message. Rarely did a prophet message produce such a quick response. How often we hear a sermon and response? That was an excellent point. I ought to do that, only to leave church and forget the act. These people put their words into action. When you hear a good sermon or lesson, ask what should you do about it, and then make to put it into practice. We hear good messages all the time, but we don't put them into action. We don't put them into practice. I say all the time, we need to start as children of God, putting what we hear on Sunday morning into our daily life. We have to put it into practice. But it's not a priority for us. It becomes a priority for us when things happen. When things happen to us, then we decide to put things into priority. But God wants us to put him first. And this is what we need to learn to do, to always put God first. And when we put him first, then we will be ever successful, more successful than we are. Because we have our luxury homes, and every time you turn around, something is going wrong. Something is happening. sometimes we have to ask ourselves, why are these things happening? What are we putting first in our lives? Are we putting our homes? Are we putting our friends? Are we putting the TVs? Are we putting the video games, the sports shows, and all of these things? We're putting all of these things before God. We have to start putting God first. Even over your spouses, God comes first. And then your spouse. If you don't know that already. But we have a tendency of putting everything first but God. And then we wonder why things happen to us. It's because our priorities are wrong. It says the book of Haggai had a message for the Hebrew people who returned from the exile imposed by Babylon in 586 BC. Even though the Hebrew people had more than 70 years of captivity to learn about the priorities of divine things, they returned to their old patterns to misplaced priorities, and a few years after returning from exile, again, misunderstood their purpose. Haggai prophesied, declared God's displeasure with Judah's ingratitude. And think about that. They had been in captivity for a very long time, 70 years. That's a long time. Well, in our standards, it's a long time because we think 70 years is old. You know, but since I'm closer to 70 than anything else, I don't think it's that old anymore. I'm just saying. Just saying. But when they got out, they had God's priority first. Then they forgot about what was important. And think about what we do. When we in the midst of troubles or tribulations, we can put God first. Then we forget that he got us out of it. And then we go back most of the time to the same things over and over again. And we wonder why these things keep happening to us. You look at your patterns. Are you always putting God first? Where is your priority? What interests you most? And I always say, when I'm looking at things, you can tell what's important to people. It's what they care about. What do they care about most? Do they care about God or just what God can give them? Because if you look, we can find every excuse in the world not to be here on Sunday mornings and be here on time. I bet you get to work on time. Well, most of us get to work on time. And we do our jobs. But when it comes to putting God first on Sunday mornings, we drag in. Even if we stay around the corner, we drag in, and then we look at the clock. Where are our priorities? And we have to think about that. And God sees us. And until we put our priorities correctly, our things that we accumulate is going to be like water running down the road that we can't catch because our priorities is wrong. And you know, if you know me, I'm an on-time person. I hate late. I don't do late well. I'll do it, but I don't do it well. Sunday school starts at 9 o'clock. If you walk in at 9, you're late. Service starts at 10 o'clock. If you come in after 10, you're late. We have to take, what's the word I want to use? We have to understand what we are doing. You know, if God came back at 10 o'clock and you start in service at 10:10, you done missed him. Consider who you serving. God is an on-time God. Why are we late serving an on-time God? Because we gonna miss him because we always late. We have to put God first, put our priorities in order, and think about who we serving. We're not serving the people in the pews. We're serving God. And we living luxury houses, fine cars, they running, they doing everything that they supposed to do, or we want them to do. And those things we put first instead of putting God first. Christians, children of God, we have to learn to put our priorities straight and put God first. And I'm going to leave you with that this morning.
We used to just play follow the leader. The leader said lift your hands, you just lift your hands. And the leader said clap, clap. The leader said sway, you sway. But you get to a point beyond the veil where your worship is for real. Candace is going to come and Bishop Gordon is going to jump in here a little bit. We're going to leave here tonight worshiping the Lord. How many know if he never does anything else, he's already done enough? He's worthy of all the worship because of who he is. Come on, clap your hands, everybody.
You don't know my story. All the things that